Every year when it gets close to Halloween, I see people making recommendations of scary movies to watch. However, it's almost always the same things. Halloween, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, and so on. Not that there's anything wrong with those, they are beloved classics for a reason. However, why not look at some other horror films, both old and new, ones you probably never heard of? So for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be giving you an absolute cornucopia of quality horror films that really deserve your attention. To keep it interesting, I'm going to be giving you a wide variety of genres, a little something for everyone. To start things off, this week I'm going to give you a bevy of folk horror. The Ritual. The Ritual is a 2017 folk horror film from director David Bruckner. A group of friends go on a hiking trip in northern Sweden in the memory of their friend who died during a robbery 6 months earlier. While out there, they decide to go off the trail into the woods, where they find all sorts of unusual things and they are trying to survive. The movie was shot in the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. It premiered at the Toronto International Film Fest, where it scared the hell out of audiences. Due to the positive buzz, Netflix bought the international distribution rights for them to stream it on their platform. To me, this is kind of a bummer. I really feel this movie would have done well theatrically. It's a genuinely scary film that channels both the fear of the woods and the fear of the unknown. While going directly to Netflix has allowed audiences to see it right away, I think that cut it off from a much broader audience. In general, how many breakout films has Netflix had? They've acquired a bunch of them over the years, but usually the only ones that make headlines are the horrible ones. The good ones get a little bit of attention, but then are promptly forgotten. The movie premiered on Netflix on February 9th, 2018, and I listed it as one of my favorite films of that year. Sadly, it's a movie that no one really talks about anymore. Being that this one is owned by Netflix, the chances of it getting a physical release are slim. However, it is available to stream there. Pyewacket. Pyewacket's a 2017 folk horror film written and directed by Adam McDonald. The movie centers on a mother and her teenage daughter Leia. Like most teenagers, she doesn't get along with her mother. This is made all the more worse when her father dies, and the two have to relocate to a small town in the middle of nowhere to get a fresh start. Leia's obsessed with the occult, and she discovers a ritual to summon the demon Pyewacket. The name Pyewacket is one of the familiar spirits discovered by the witchfinder General Matthew Hopkins in 1644. He claimed he witnessed a group of witches who were performing rituals to summon these demons for nefarious purposes. After an argument, Leia goes into the woods to perform the ritual to summon Pyewacket and asks it to kill her mother. Shortly after that, she has an emotional moment with her mom and the two bond and reconnect. The demon starts tormenting Leia, who comes to the realization of what she did. She now regrets it and tries to do whatever she can to stop the demon from killing her mother. This is a terrific slow burn movie. It's largely just Leia by herself and how she deals with everything that's happening because of the ritual. She occasionally goes to school, but for the most part, it's her and occasionally her mom, played by Laurie Holden. The movie also premiered at the Toronto International Film Fest in 2017. It had a small theatrical run in Canada before getting a Blu-ray release from Shout Factory. The movie does a great job of playing with the fear of the unknown and showing the ramifications of a teenager's bad decisions. You genuinely connect with the characters, and you feel the terror and anguish that Leia is going through. A genuinely good little horror movie. The movie is currently available for streaming on Shudder. A Dark Song. A Dark Song is a 2016 folk horror film written and directed by Liam Gavin. It's about Sophia, a mother who's grieving over the loss of her 7-year-old son. She rents an isolated house in Wales and hires Joseph, an occultist, who can perform a ritual so that she can speak with her son one last time. They have to stay in isolation in this house for months because it takes that long to perform the ritual. This is a tremendous film that shows you can do a one-location film with a tiny cast and still make it work. It's very unique and creepy because you never know where the film's going to go. The movie was an Irish-British co-production. It premiered in July 2016 at the Galway Film Fest. While the film had a fair deal of praise, I'm pretty sure it never had a wider theatrical release beyond just the festival circuit. It was picked up and distributed through IFC Midnight and later released on Blu-ray from Shout. It's also streaming on Shudder. Kill List. Kill List is a 2011 folk horror film co-written and directed by Ben Wheatley. The movie's about two friends who are also hitmen. One of them has a case from his past that comes back to haunt him, which causes all kinds of bizarre things to happen in his life. One of the things that stands out the most to me is just how much this feels like the most recognized folk horror film of all time, The Wicker Man. It shares so much of its vibe, and not in a ripping off kind of way, but in an emotional way. It's also strange and has you asking questions, so once the mystery is revealed, you still aren't exactly sure what's going on. It's a movie where so many weird things happen, and it absolutely grabs your attention and will not let go. It's not a everything is left up to your imagination type film. It's a movie where you gradually understand what's going on, and later, the movie makes more sense in future viewings. To me, this is a sign of a genuinely good movie, where you notice bits and pieces that seem strange on first watch, but end up much clearer on the second viewing. I knew right away Ben Wheatley would be a director to keep an eye on, and I was right. He followed this up with the black comedy Sightseers, the psychological horror A Field in England, and others. However, when he came to Hollywood, instead of letting him continue to make these smaller, unique horror films, he was hired to write and direct the reboot of Tomb Raider. That project fell through and went to another director, so he ended up doing the big-budget sequel, The Meg 2, which I still haven't seen, but I did enjoy the first one. I don't know the story behind this, but Wheatley seems like such an odd choice for this. I still don't know why he took the job, because his work was consistent up to this point. And now, even though the movie did well, I haven't seen anything else coming from him as of late. I hope he continues to make these smaller, strange films, because the ones he's made previously have all been good, and I feel that's where he really shines. Kill List is available for streaming on Shudder, or you can buy it on Blu-ray from MPI. It's also on video on demand. The Blood on Satan's Claw. Blood on Satan's Claw is a 1971 folk horror film from director Piers Haggard. The movie's about the children of a small village in the early 18th century converting into a coven of Satan worshippers. The children all start to band together to go on murder and rape sprees. Those that are blessed by the devil have a spot on them covered in thick fur. A few years before this production, the studio, Tygon British Film Productions, made the movie The Witchfinder General. It was a modest hit, which led them to wanting to make another. They originally greenlit The Blood on Satan's Claw as an anthology, but they decided instead to combine all the tales into one overarching story. The movie does a good job of showcasing the time period. The locations they used in the film were previously used in the Hammer horror film The Witches. The costumes are great, and all the cabins they used look authentic. I say this because it was not a major studio. This was a very low-budget production that initially bombed in theaters. The movie went through a few name changes. It was originally The Devil's Touch, then Satan's Skin, and finally The Blood on Satan's Claw, although it's also sometimes listed simply as Blood on Satan's Claw. For the role of the judge, they initially wanted actor Peter Cushing, who turned it down because he was taking care of his wife, who was dying of emphysema. They thought about offering the role to Christopher Lee, but his fee would have been more than they could afford, so they hired actor Patrick Wymark for the role. The film was restored in 2019 by Severin, but that's out of print. However, the good news is it was re-released by 88 Films in April of 2024. For such a small film, it looks fantastic, thanks to award-winning cinematographer Dick Bush. The use of shadows and camera angles make this movie punch above its weight class. The acting in the film is also solid, from the overbearing, God-fearing townsfolk to the bewitching evil children. Linda Hayden especially shines as Angel, the leader of the evil kids. Right before this, she starred in the 1970 Hammer production, Taste the Blood of Dracula. It also has a fairly unexpected kick-ass ending. The film has since become a cult classic and is revered in the genre of British folklore. This is one of the original folk horrors that, for better or for worse, it definitely served as an inspiration for Midsommar. If you can't find the Blu-ray, the movie is currently streaming on Tubi and Pluto. So there's a nice dose of folk horror to start off the season. Lots more to come. I'll see you next time.
hell, you vixen! Do you hear me?